Right, okay, sorry about that. We had a couple of technical issues just getting going. We've got a few latecomers. Thanks for coming. Welcome to our second speaker session of today. I'm delighted to welcome Nigel Banks, Technical Director at Octopus Energy. Nigel's been passionate about improving homes for many years now and been instrumental in developing the first homes with zero energy bills, and is now working with Octopus to scale up that operation. Nigel's here to talk to us about new energy system and zero bills and what we can expect moving forward. So I will hand you over to Nigel.
Okay, brilliant. Everyone hear me okay? Fantastic. Well, great to be here in Manchester at Housing. The session I'm going to run through today is a bit of background about the new energy system. Some of you might be energy geeks and really into that, and for some of you that might be quite new. So giving a high-level overview of what's really changing in the energy system and why that's important, because it is massively changing at the moment. And then what we can do with that. And one of the things we can do with that is offer guaranteed zero energy bills. And on your chair you'd have seen a bit of information summary on how we are able to and what we're offering, which is guaranteed zero energy bills for 10 years in new homes. So quite a transformational offer. And then I'll finish off with a little bit of thoughts around how that applies in retrofit and retrofit strategies as well. And something which we've been thinking about around the role of what order measures could and should be done in. Oh, if I click on. Should be clicking on. Oh, gone twice now. Go back. Back again. Okay, so hopefully you're all familiar with the Octopus Energy business. If you're not, we're now quite a large energy retailer, serving about 1 in 5 homes in the UK. We also have a lot of our own assets, so we have our own wind farms, our own solar farms. We also have a big services business installing solar battery, heat pump, EV chargers, and then we license our tech platform to another number of other suppliers. And that tech platform, Kraken, is really at the heart of the new energy system. So the new energy system isn't just about turning on and off gas-fired power stations to meet needs as it's required. The new energy system is about responding to demand and turning demand up and down, as well as responding to the renewable energy generation, whether it be wind or solar, and how much of that energy is generating at any one time, because that varies, and trying to use both the supply and the demand side to deliver great customer service and make sure the power is still on and you're getting exactly what you want when you want it in your home, but doing it in a smart way so that it works well with the renewable energy future that we are in. And I'll explain how much of that is changing, how fast that's changing, and Kraken is at the heart of that, managing both the upstream and the downstream ends of the energy system. We've now moved to a position where Octopus is the number 1 electricity supplier in the UK. We're now the UK's biggest supplier, and that's been very much around customer service, demonstrating fantastic customer service, but also producing simple end customer propositions. So we now, as I say, supply around 1 in 4, 1 in 5 homes in the UK. I need to point my... Oh, we're back on. Shall I just ask you to click on? Yeah? Okay, so just a few bits of background on the energy system, Stephen. A lot of people focus on this chart, which is how much energy in kilowatt hours people use in a home. So this is the UK's typical existing home. About 2/3 of our energy is in heating, around 20% in electricity and 20% in gas, if you click on. When you convert that into an energy bill, which is what people generally care about, it's because gas is around 1/4 of the price of electricity, only 1/3 of the typical home's bill is actually heating energy use, and actually more than half it is electricity use. There's also a big chunk in standing charges as well, which people pay irrespective of how much energy they use, just to have access to energy. And that's in an existing home. In a new home, it's even a smaller percentage. So about half the home's energy use in kilowatt hours is heating. Next slide. It's about 20% of the average energy bill in a new home is heating. So actually, a lot of the focus to date has been on heating, but we've actually done a pretty good job of getting that to a reasonable level in new homes. Existing homes, there is still lots of potential to improve that. But what is apparent there is in a typical new home, more than half the energy use is in electricity use. That's your cooking, your appliances, your fans, your pumps, your lights. All that amounts to almost half people's bills. If you've got a gas heated home, you look at the two, you'll find people often spend around, in a new home, about half their energy on electricity. And one of the things that's been really interesting is that we have massively decarbonised our electricity grid in the last 10 years. So 10 years ago, about 40% of the UK's electricity came from coal plants. This year, less than 1% will come from coal plants. So we've gone from a carbon intensity of 500 to around 150 this year. So we've had almost a 3-4-fold decrease in the carbon intensity of the electricity grid, which now means heating your home with direct electrical heating is lower carbon than running off a gas boiler. And if you look with a heat pump, which uses 1 unit electricity to create 3 or 4 units of heat, then you're a hell of a lot lower carbon in your heating using heat pumps than you are for gas boilers. And as the grid goes to zero, which Labour are targeting by 2030 and the Conservatives 2035, when that goes to zero, your house goes zero carbon in operation. So actually, if we can decarbonise and move to electric forms of heat, that will deliver most of the decarbonisation. And that's why the important role of heat pumps. Now, everyone's very aware that the cost of energy has been very high. Obviously, we currently import a lot of our gas, and we're reliant on the global market for gas. That gas price spiked massively, and that pushed everyone's bills up hugely. This is showing the price cap and the cost of gas. But because currently about 40% of our electricity demand comes from gas, that also impacted the electricity cost. So our electricity costs were driven by the gas price as well, and we went to very high electricity prices as well. That has come back down, and has come back down both on the gas and electricity to a level it's about 50% higher than it was pre the energy crisis, and expected to stay at that sort of level for the foreseeable future at the moment. What that means is people's bills have last year were double what they were pre-crisis, and this year they're expected to come back down to about the level they were in 2022. So this is actual data of Octopus Energy customers by EPC rating over the last 5 years. So I think 2023 is about 2 or 3 million customers, and you can see that a EPC A and B rated home is lower bills than an EPC E and F rated home. But even a new build EPC A rated home last year would have had a bill of over £2,000. And that's because the EPC rating is largely measuring the fabric improvements, but doesn't really take account of the hot water improvements, and there's not a lot of work done on reducing electricity demand other than potentially installing some solar. But we can get that bill down to zero, and I'll explain how we can get that down to zero even on a new build home, where typically bills this year will be about £1,600 a year. So one of the really important things to understand about the electricity system is, although you may pay a fixed rate of around 24 pence kilowatt hours today, which most people on flat rate tariffs do, the actual price of electricity varies every half an hour through the day. And this is the last month, and back on the 8th of June, the price went to minus 8.4p. So if this is the price that you pay on our Octopus Agile tariff, which varies every half an hour of the day. And if you're on our Agile tariff, that evening or that night probably, we would have paid you 8.4 pence for every unit of energy you use. So you want to turn everything on. And the reason for that is we had too much power in the grid. We had too much power, and we were having to pay the wind turbines to turn off. And therefore it's cheaper for the energy system to have, and energy prices go negative. So energy prices go negative around 200 or 300 hours a year at the moment. That's expected to go up to 1 in 8, 1 in 9 hours by the end of this decade, in the next 5 years. So we're going to have lots of times when it's very windy, when the price goes very low or even negative. But we also have times when the price goes very high, almost double what the average price cap rate is. And that's when there's too much demand, there isn't enough wind, there isn't enough solar, and we're having to turn back on these peaking gas plants or peaking coal plants. So we're turning on the dirty coal-fired or gas plants to generate energy at peak, but when we have excess energy, prices go very low or even negative. So when you use your energy is almost as important from a cost point of view as how much you use. Now, we still want to limit how much energy you use, but if you can use it at the right time, you can massively reduce your energy bills. And that's how we unlock zero bills. So, but also the point is, we're only at the start of the journey of installing offshore wind and connecting it up to the grid. So this is historical on the left. The colours aren't great, but you can see wind is currently, if you go to the next slide, wind and solar renewables is about 40% of the electricity grid. On National Grid's forecasts, that's projected to go up to 70% in the business as usual, falling short, doesn't get us to net zero in the next 10 years. If you click on again, this is the scenario that gets to net zero. Again, we actually go to 85% renewables in the next 10 years. So we are only at the start of this journey where we are about to turn on a huge amount of offshore wind and solar, and that is going to massively drive how much energy is available on that grid. And you can see with a limited amount of sort of 40-45% at the moment, we're already getting negative pricing. This is why when we use our energy becomes really important, and how that's going to impact our grid, because we are going to have too much energy at times, a lot of the time when it's windy, and at times we won't have enough power, and that's when we'll still have very expensive power. So when you use energy becomes really important. Next slide. So there are three factors that affect people's bills. How much energy they use, and we want to reduce demand wherever we can. How efficiently we're producing that energy and converting that into what we need it to use it in. And then the tariff. And that drives the cost. So the best example of this is driving a car. So that same equation on a petrol car, electric car on a standard tariff, and electric car on our smart controlled intelligent Octopus tariff. So if you're in a petrol car, £1.60 a litre-ish, you'll spend about £1,500 a year doing 10,000 miles. If you're at home on a standard flat rate tariff of 27p, it's about £700. If you plug your car in and let us decide when we charge it, so we can charge it when the wind is blowing, we'll definitely charge it whenever you want it the next day, but give us control of exactly when we do that charging. We'll charge that car for 7.5 pence a kilowatt hour. And that means you're doing 10,000 miles for under £200. So driving a car can be an eighth of the cost, electric car, eighth of the cost of driving a petrol or diesel car, if you allow us to smart control when you do the charging. So this is a really great example of how the new greener solutions can also be lower running cost and better for the consumer. And it's not hard. You go home, you plug your car in, and on your app you've said, I want my car charged by 6 in the morning to 100%. And then Octopus does everything in the background. We do all the smart controlling and decide when it is. So from a user experience, it's very simple. You're not having to work out when the energy is cheap. You just go home, plug your car in and say when you want it cheap. And if you want to plug it in and charge it instantly, you can do. You just pay the normal rate. So really simplifying that customer journey, but also unlocking and using that excess renewable energy that's available often at night. And we now do that for a variety of things. So we've got Intelligent Octopus Go tariff, next one, which hooks up to most of the major car brands, as well as if you use the right charge at any car brand, electric car brand. We have a tariff for batteries, our Intelligent Octopus Flux tariff, which smart controls the battery and gives you fantastic export rates, so you make more money from your battery system. And then we have Cozy, which controls your heat pump to run your hot water cycle on that cheap energy at night, and also optimize to you say what time you want your home at what temperature, and we will optimize that and deliver that temperature in the cheapest possible way, which usually also means we're using that green energy when it's available, making more of that green energy. So again, we have a very simple app-based interface. So in the car, as I say, you say, I want my car charged 100% by 7:30, and then we map the charge and tell you when we're going to do the charging and deliver that next day. On the battery, we give you live feed on the battery, and we'll smart control that battery and optimize it for you. And in the home, with the Octopus Cozy tariff, you set the temperature you want in your home. You can boost it if you want, so it hooks into your smartphone app as well. You can also control it on the thermostat in the home as well. We combine all three of those together in our zero bills tariff. So that is bringing together not just the battery smart control, but also pulling together the heat pump smart control with a well-insulated new home, and we can guarantee zero energy bills. So how does that work? So as I say, we need solar panels on the roof because we need to generate a lot of solar. So we generally need to be net zero carbon in operations. So we need to generate as much energy in the year from the solar panels we expect the house to use. So currently we're only really doing this in new homes or recently built homes because there isn't enough roof space generally to get to zero bills otherwise, which is a challenge. So lots of solar on the roof, that's generating energy. We can use that in the home. We can also store it in the battery and then discharge it out to the grid. And so we control when we charge and discharge that battery. For the person living in the home, they live in their home normally, set the thermostat or on the controls on the app, and they haven't got to worry about energy bills at all. So, and we guarantee that currently for 5 years. We now extend it out to a 10-year guarantee. We don't expect to charge a bill in year 11 or 12, so this is effectively, well, as long as the equipment is running in the home, if we can make money by exporting that energy out to the grid at peak time and charge the heat pump and the hot water cylinder and the battery at off-peak time, we can get to a zero energy bill on these homes, guaranteed for the consumer on an ongoing basis. So we're really excited about that. That brings together all the tech capabilities Octopus has into a new tariff, and we optimise the imports and exports to make that happen. these are the very first zero build homes that I built when I was at Ilka a couple of years ago, and we launched this 2 years ago. And I think that the Octopus team felt this would be just fly off the shelves, everyone would buy it straight away. The house building sector is quite slow to move and adopt new technologies, I would suggest, but we are making some really good traction. So we now have assessed over 3,500 homes. We've got 1,000 homes committed to being built to this standard. We've now got 50 homes occupied, and I should have about 200 by the end of the year, and are working with quite a few number of partners, small, big, and across sectors. So we've now got some of the bigger names, as well as some of the smaller, sort of startup names, working with a number of partners that are now developing at scale, doing large sites. Ooh. Generally, we are working in the low-rise housing sector, because on a block of flats you tend to run out of roof space, unfortunately. We have got some 2-story and 3-floor flats coming through, but we're generally working in that mainstream, mass-market, low-rise housing, and we are working cross-tenure. So we've got schemes with Verto, which have got homes with Sovereign. We've got a scheme with Hill, which have got homes with Clarion, and we've got some stuff with Edenstone as well. And I forget the name of the Housing Association in Wales as well, working there. Working with the build-to-rent sector. For the build-to-rent sector, it's a bit of a no-brainer. They can make this all-inclusive bills homes, which is something that they've doing the high-rise multi-family, but bring that into the single-family homes. So all-in rent, a slightly higher rent premium, that recovers the extra upfront cost and guarantees the zero bill for the consumer. In open market sale and shared ownership, there are the price premium people are achieving on site is higher than the cost of installing the equipment. So the house builders have a viable proposition, so it makes commercial sense. The one sector it is challenging is in this sector, in the affordable rent sector, where rents are capped. We do think there is a value proposition that your tenants will not have an energy bill, be more likely to pay their rent, will have less rent arrears. You'll have no concerns that people won't be turning their heating on because they won't be worried about bills. So the heating will be on, so damp, cold and mould. But the viability level is about £30 a month would be the extra over cost you need to cover to recover both the upfront capital cost and the ongoing maintenance cost, we think, on a long-term basis. So we do think there is potential if you could charge £30 a month more rent, you would fully recover all your costs and your ongoing maintenance costs, and the tenant would still be £100 a month better off as well. So the value proposition is there, it's how we unlock it, which is the challenge in the affordable housing sector. We also think it will drive increased asset value longer term in your portfolio. If you can charge increased rents, then you can drive that. So the build to rent sector, it's a bit of a no-brainer. And there's some areas in the affordable rent we think there is headroom to do that. And I've talked about not having to retrofit your homes. All the equipment is there: heat pumps, solar, and battery. And the bottom 2 points I've already covered. So, how much does it cost? That's usually the question people ask. So if you're applying to an existing new home, or a new home you're planning on building already, and you can do the works as part of that new build programme, so you build it into your spec. For a home that already has a heat pump, we think the extra over cost is between £5,000 and £12,000. £5,000 for a small home, £12,000 for a large sort of 5-bed detached home. And that's largely in the cost of a home battery. The extra solar panels is where the costs are, if you've already got a heat pump included. If you haven't got a heat pump in your base spec already, you should do. But if you haven't, there's probably an extra £3,000 to £5,000 worth of extra cost for heat pump compared to a gas combi boiler in a new build spec. So the uplifting cost isn't huge, but we do recognise that is a barrier if you haven't got a rental income stream to capture that. Where you can unlock the rental stream, it's a no-brainer, we think. Where you can unlock the value uplift in sales uplift in shared ownership, then that's also a potentially no-brainer. The Ilka example, the value uplift and shared ownership sold for £40,000 more. That would have cross-subsidised probably 4 or 3 other affordable rent homes. So the potential cross-subsidy model between the shared ownership to support the affordable could also work, we think. And the other thing to say is the cost of these technologies are dropping and have been dropping very fast. So the cost of a solar panel a year ago was double what it is today. So I think we now buy a 440 watt solar panel for about £64. So these panels were 5 times the price and half as efficient 10 years ago, and they were twice the price and about 15% less efficient just a year ago. So there is a massive evolution in the price of solar that we've seen, and we're seeing that now as we're massively ramping up factories making batteries. The cost of batteries is expected to drop massively, and CATL are forecasting more than halving their costs in their batteries this year as well. So if that follows through into domestic batteries, which it should do, same chemistry, then we'd see a massive drop in price in batteries, making this even more affordable. So I want to just finish by bringing this into retrofit, which I know Stephen will have some thoughts on. And I wrote this article called Fabric Fifth, because one of the things that we've seen is the cost of those technologies, solar, battery, heat pumps, and the support there has dropped massively, whereas the cost of installation works has gone up. Largely because partly some of the cost of materials have gone up. Getting the PAS 35, getting that done right means all the details are being done right, and that is adding quite a lot to the cost. So we've rejigged this slightly, and effectively saying we think it makes sense to, whenever possible, electrify heat as soon as possible. If you put them on a smart tariff, you can unlock the benefits of a lower cost energy, and ideally you do that at the same time as basic fabric measures. Using data to measure the performance of those homes and make sure you're getting the right kit in the home, the right size heat pump is important. Doing the basic measures of lofts, cavities, draft roofing makes sense, but you don't have to do that before the heat pump's installed. You could do that as a follow-up measure 2 months, 6 months, a year later, but getting the heat pump in is what delivers the decarbonisation. If you're interested in driving down energy costs for your tenants, the biggest thing you can do is install solar and battery systems rather than doing deep retrofit. From a cost benefit perspective, if you can fit solar and battery in the home, that will deliver a much bigger carbon saving than most insulation measures. It does make sense to install insulation measures in homes. We're not saying don't do fabric, but it is an expensive set of measures, and they also come with a high upfront carbon footprint. So we are saying, from a cost effectiveness point of view, there are homes that need fabric improvements, do those, but maybe don't let that stop you fitting the heat pump or doing the basic measures first. And I put these charts together at the weekend for today's show, just to show and illustrate two different journeys. One is a fabric first, where you do basic loft and cavity, external wall insulation, triple glazing on the floor insulation, has a very high cost and does reduce bills, but not massively. The thing that reduces bills is the solar and battery step 5. The thing that reduces emissions is largely that heat pump. Getting off gas is the big driver of that. So if you can do that first, you can decarbonise, and as the grid goes to zero, you get to zero carbon. If you can do the solar and battery, that brings down the cost. And if you can do it all, and there are homes that do need it all doing, then you'll get to the full suite. But don't hold back in fitting heat pumps, solar and battery systems while you're waiting or trying to find money or get funding for doing other works. There are other measures that can make financial sense now, and we recommend that you look at those as part of a coherent plan to decarbonise and reduce fuel poverty in your stock. So hopefully that's been an interesting whirlwind tour of the world of energy, where we can go on new homes, and there's some thought-provoking thoughts around how that would apply into existing homes as well. So I'll stop there, go to the final slide, next one, and we will take any questions.
Brilliant, thanks Nigel, some really insightful stats and and a really good proposition that's been presented. Any questions? Oh, there you go.
Nigel, thank you for that. Does this work commercially for housing associations, RPs as well?
Yeah, so I think, as I said, the challenging bit in the affordable renter sector with zero bills is, can you recapture that value? There are RPs that are working at scale that do see the bigger value proposition. If there were the ability to increase rent by £30 a month on a property, that would make it all wash its face, and you deliver net zero carbon homes with zero bills and no concerns around people turning the heating on, etc. Without that, it is challenging, but we do think it can wash its face, and there are housing associations doing this at scale, sort of 100 homes on a site being zero bills that we're just finalising now. So we do think it can work. On the retrofit side, I think there is a challenge at the moment that the SHGF to date hasn't really supported heat pumps. The new Wave 3 is supporting heat pumps with £7,500 towards that, as well as supporting the installation measures. So you can do that holistic package. Solar and battery systems will fund themselves, but again, you'll have to have some mechanism of getting some value from that, because all the benefit would go to the tenant if you install that and they self-consume. But there is an export revenue, and we are working with some housing associations around the export revenue going to the housing associations, so they get a revenue stream from the solar. So the tenant benefits from the energy they can use. Anything that's exported, the landlord can get that back. So we're working through some models to see how that works with Together Group, and seeing if we can make that work in the retrofit space as well.
Thank you. Oh, is that gone off? No? Any more questions?
Thanks for the presentation. I thought it was really interesting. Just might be a daft question, but with the solar panels and the batteries, obviously there's degrading of the batteries over time, and the solar panels only work best when they're clean.
Mhm.
So is that taken into your calculation of net zero for the property? Is the lack of maintenance on solar panels, or do they need washing every 6 months or something? And then the batteries, after 3 years, do they only have 70% of their capacity, or what's the outcome of that?
Okay, so on battery storage, the main battery provider we've been working with today is a company called Give Energy. They have a 12-year warranty on that battery and inverter, so expected life is beyond 12 years. They don't require a physical check each year. They do a remote diagnostic check at year 5, 8 and 10 to validate the warranty. So that needs to be considered, that you need to do that remote diagnostic check, but there isn't an annual servicing requirement on solar and battery systems. It does make sense to clean your panels every few years, particularly if you're in an area frequented by birds and droppings. But generally, the solar panels clean reasonably well just with the rain. But yeah, there are situations where it makes sense to clean your panels. If you've got panels at home and they are covered in bird muck, and one panel in particular is covered, the whole string gets affected. So it does make sense, if you get one panel badly soiled, to clean them all. But typically, it's recommended that you do that every couple of years, because actually it doesn't tend to happen to build up that much. And we do take into account on our zero bills the degradation of panel performance and battery performance. So panels are typically guaranteed their output of 90% after 25 years. So there is not a lot to go wrong with a solar panel, but yeah, because there's no moving parts to it. But that degradation is about 1% a year initially, and it drops down to about 0.5% a year, about 90% performance after 25 years. So it needs to be thought about and considered, but yeah, they are fairly low maintenance. And then the other thing I would say on heat pumps, I think a lot of people think a heat pump costs 10 grand to install on a retrofit, which you might do, and there's a £7,500 grant towards that. But most of that work is actually upgrading radiators, installing a cylinder for the first time, repiping the house. The actual external unit itself, which is like the thing that needs maybe replacing at year 15 or 20, is about £2,000. So actually replacing the external unit won't be a big 10 grand cost. That 10 grand upfront cost for the first install is largely about getting your house ready for a low temperature system, rather than the actual cost of the actual box that sits outside that generates the heat. So if you think of it as it's 10 grand versus £1,000 for a boiler swap, it's not actually, because most of what you're doing is actually upgrading the house's systems ready for a low carbon heating system.
Great, thank you. Hello, any more questions? One at the back.
Thank you for this talk. It's much appreciated. Just one question: delivering at scale, is that, if assuming things go very well and people take up this zero bills offer, is that something you're confident you can deliver at scale if things go really well?
Yep, we're targeting 50,000 homes accredited for zero bills by the end of next year, and looking to build a big push with this. We're working with a lot of the bigger builders as well as the smaller ones, and we've got a team of 10 people. We've got to stand on the far side, come and talk to us about it. We're also doing this internationally, so we are live in Germany and New Zealand with zero bills, and we're going to be live in Spain, Italy, France, and hopefully Texas this year as well. So we are taking this into our global footprint. We think the product works financially for us. We've now had a couple of years of data from those initial homes and seeing how they perform. So this is a viable tariff where we're making the revenues from the export to recover the cost of the imports, and it's a viable proposition for us to scale. So we are looking to really push this hard. So anyone that's got any schemes that are looking at zero bills, come and talk to us. We're on G27 over there, and or come and speak to us after this event. So yeah, really looking to take this to really big scale.
Hi, I came a bit late, so I'm not sure if this question's already been asked. Obviously on the flyers you've got a picture just like a standard property. How does it work in terms of maybe low-rise flats or masonettes where it's more than one family dwelling in a property? Can it still be done with those, or is it just single?
So we are doing maisonettes, and up to 3-story flats is the highest we've got to work so far. The challenge is how much roof space you've got versus how much energy consumption you've got within the home. So we are looking at that, but the other thing we are looking at is on the bigger master plan sites where might have some high-rise flats, you might have local housing, you might have some other public open space. Quite a few developers are buying the fields next door for biodiversity net gain and looking at putting solar farms or a small solar array in that biodiversity net gain area. So that potentially we can do that on a combined network or a microgrid type approach. So we are looking at that with some clients as well to deliver that where you can't get the solar on all the roofs. So that is definitely possible. Not easy, but it's definitely possible. So low-rise flats, yeah. High-rise flats, you need to be part of a bigger. The technologies smart controlling tariffs, solar will help, but you won't get to zero because you run out of roof space unless you get the solar somewhere else.
Hello, Nigel. A couple of questions on your fabric fifth. I doubt you're surprised, but I suppose my first point, you put the makeup of the energy bill up there as a calculation, the demand divided by the system efficiency times the tariff.
Yep.
Two of those things are within the gift of the occupant, the owner, or the asset, the demand and the heating system efficiency.
And what tariff they're on.
And they can pick a tariff.
Yep.
If there isn't a tariff available because there's been an energy crisis that is competitive, and I sent you something about the agile tariff not being very agile at all for a good year. There was no cheap time to do your heating during that energy crisis. So I suppose, and I kind of want this to work, and I like the idea of new build. The reason it works in new build is you're using the fabric of the building and the setup to make the whole thing works.
Yep.
And the reason you're not offering it in retrofit is you probably can't offer that guaranteed system efficiency and the tariff. Or is there going to be, I suppose my simple question is, are you going to get it for retrofit and really take the risk? Because at the moment you're asking the housing provider and the occupant to take that risk on the heating system efficiency and the availability of the tariff. And that to me looks risky.
We are looking at retrofit. We have done some retrofits of some very recently built new homes on behalf of Citra. And we are working with Clarion Housing Group on some homes that have had a full fabric wrap done to see if we can get them to zero builds. It is much more challenging in retrofit for a number of reasons. As you say, the quality of that installation hasn't been done well. But the advantage we have in retrofit is if someone's been living in that home, we understand their existing energy use, and that gives us an understanding of that gives us some data on historical use, and therefore some understanding of how that could be on going forward as well. So we are looking at that with a slightly different model. It won't be the new build tariff, but a retrofit version of it. Watch this space. And happy to talk and see if we can make that work together, because I think we do need on existing homes to upgrade the fabric to get to zero builds. My point on Fabric Fifth is if you can't afford to do all of it in one go, let's think about what order we do stuff in so we get the decarbonisation and the bill savings quickly. If we can do it all together in one hit, fantastic, and we think we can get to zero bills if you do a deep fabric retrofit on some homes, but probably not all.
Thank you. Any more? No? We're done? Okay, well, thanks, Nigel. Great presentation. We just show our appreciation.